Gosh, man, I don't want to be the guy to complain, but wow, this offseason has been so slow. And at this point, I think we're going to have to really start digging to the bottom of the barrel to come up with things to talk about. Long gone are the days where we literally have like 7 or 8 newsworthy topics to make videos about per day. Now it's like, hey, I kind of have to dig something out of nothing, and I think that's kind of why the content on the YouTube channel has been so difficult to fully make nowadays. But I understand that is the ebbs and flows of being a hockey content creator who does this full-time and who makes videos every single day. Nobody pity me, please. This is what I signed up for. I've been through this before. I will say this is like a lot more of a dead off-season compared to prior years. I don't really recall any other season where there wasn't anything to talk about like this year. But with all this in mind, it sparked some creativity in me to go out there and talk about one of my favorite teams and how the GM of the team, Kent Hughes of the Montreal Canadiens, has absolutely cooked. Now, the thing is, when you look at the Montreal Canadiens roster, when you acknowledge what they are, the Habs are not really a team that is supposed to be in their Stanley Cup window. They're not competing for a cup. You could say they're not even really in contention for a playoff spot. If they miss the playoffs in 2025, I don't think anybody's going to be too surprised. But it is 2024. Which means that by the time this season begins and by the time everything gets put into place, Kent Hughes will be almost 4 years removed from actually being hired as the Montreal Canadiens GM. I mean, he was hired in 2021 January, so we're kind of approaching that territory here now. In the 4 years that Kent Hughes has been the Montreal Canadiens GM, what I wanted to do in this video was explore the quote-unquote biggest win that he has been able to accomplish in this position. And no, we're not talking about one particular move. We're not talking about, oh, he drafted Lane Hudson. Oh, he drafted Juraj Slafkovsky. Oh, he made this trade. Oh, he made this signing. It's not one thing. In order to help us out, though, let's go over to Dom Luszczyszyn's ranking of NHL teams and their spending efficiency. This is an article that we have been referring to a bunch over the past few days because it just keeps on providing content. NHL contract efficiency rankings, which teams spent their money the most wisely. And if you've been around, you've been seeing this pop up here and there. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and see this yourself. Read the article on The Athletic. But we're not going to screenshot the article per se. We're going to go over onto the Canadian subreddit because what was posted by Sharks9 was the entire graph that we care about. Of course, Reddit is not behind a paywall, so I feel comfortable going out there and showing this in the video. The Montreal Canadiens' current cap situation is labeled as a B- by the folks over on The Athletic. And if you take a look at the guys that are making pretty good money, the guys making surplus money, you have yourselves players like Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Kirby Dach providing more value than what their actual dollar amounts are. The Athletic has Cole Caulfield valued as a $9.5 million player. Nick Suzuki is evaluated as a $9.4 million player. Juraj Slafkovsky is valued as a $7.2 million player. And so when it comes to these names, a lot of Canadiens guys are providing more value than their dollar amounts on the cap hit would actually imply. But that's just one side of the coin. Because if you go over to the bottom half of Montreal Canadiens forwards, you'll see a lot of red. A lot of guys on the Canadiens that are providing negative value. Jake Evans is evaluated as a $0.9 million player. He's actually making $1.7 mil. Negative $0.8 million. Yoel Armia is evaluated as a $1 million player. He's actually making 3.4. Christian Dvorak, his value is $800K, but he's making 4.5 mil. Brendan Gallagher is one of the worst here. He's making $6.5 million, but his model value is 1.9, and then Josh Anderson, his value is $0.8 million, which is negative 4.7 compared to his actual dollar amount of $5.5 million a year. And this post on the subreddit goes out there and illuminates it pretty well, but the color red is presented to you by Marc Bergevin. I'm not too sure if I'm correct on this, but I think out of all the names that are listed as red on this chart, Pezzetta, Evans, Armia, Dvorak, Gallagher, Anderson, and David Savard, we could ignore some of the really cheap ones because, okay, Michael Pezzetta is making negative $0. Like, that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I think the only contract here that Kent Hughes has signed amongst red players is the David Savard deal. And that one isn't even really all too bad because he's got 1 year remaining and he actually does provide some good defensive qualities for this blue line. I think every other guy that is in the red here was signed by Bergevin. No? If somebody wants to go out there and correct me in the comments, if Evans, Armia, Dvorak, Gallagher, or Anderson were signed by Kent Hughes, then okay, please feel free to let me know. But Marc Bergevin was so bad towards the end of his tenure when it came to signing guys and just giving out too much money. Even the comments in the replies go out there and say this: the guy that wouldn't acknowledge loyalty and yet grossly overpaid for it. He was a refreshing GM and left the organization in a much better state when he came in, but sheesh, those last months of his tenure were horrible. Now, there are a few debates in the replies afterwards. Marc Bergevin came in with a talented group of young superstars, one of the best goalies of his generation, an eventual Norris winner, and a top-flight goal-scoring winger. It was a team that regularly made the playoffs and even competed with the division title every few years. All of the success that Bergevin had was on those three guys. Even Nick Suzuki is a byproduct of Pacioretty having tons of trade value. Credit where it's due, Bergevin did do very well in that trade. During his tenure, the team got progressively worse to the point where we ended up being a basement team for now 5 years already. And dare I predict that the most important pieces of the rebuild are not going to be drafted by Bergevin. He's now in LA, not even a GM, and things are looking rough, to say the least. And so for Kent Hughes to be in this spot where over the few years that he has been the GM of this team, not only has he had to weather the storm with some of these bad contracts, but he's also gotten some of the younger generation, the new guys, onto deals that you could say are so much more valuable than anybody could have imagined. I mean, Juraj Slafkovsky locked up till the 2030s at 7-point-something mil? Caulfield and Suzuki, 7-point-something mil each? If these guys continue to grow and continue being $7, $8 million, $9 million caliber players in the model's view, I'm not even saying just strictly the athletic, but like Nick Suzuki and Caulfield, it's easy to see that the value they provide to the Canadiens, it's so much more than what their dollar amounts are indicating there. And as they get better, as they start producing more points, that number is just going to look better and better. Kent Hughes hasn't really overpaid for anybody. Unless, of course, you wanted to count David Savard, but then again, that's not really the worst situation in the world considering the positional need there. Doing all this as well while building up the Canadiens' prospect pool to a very reasonable whatever it is overall in the NHL right now. I mean, they have Demidov, one of the best prospects in the world, period. Lane Hudson is still there. David Reinbacher's got more to show for himself. Michael Hage, Owen Beck, lots of guys in the Montreal Canadiens prospect system are just on the cusp of being able to do some damage at the NHL level, and they'll be going onto a team where the most overpaid guys are all Marc Bergevin guys who, at the very worst, are going to expire in 3 years, like Gallagher and Josh Anderson. All the other red contracts are expiring in 1 year. Pezzetta, Evans, Armia, Dvorak, and David Savard. So, with this in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Kent Hughes' biggest dub as the Montreal Canadiens GM so far? We're approaching the we're in the fourth year. We're approaching 4 total years eclipsed of Kent Hughes being the GM. Is there any other thing you think he has done that's better than this? Fixing the cap situation, getting rid of all of those bad contracts, and signing ones that are even longer for better players and with more value attached to it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.